What up, YouTube? I'm back. This is the fourth take I'm doing for this exact vlog. It's very rare that I do that because I just usually wing it, or I'm highlighting a friend and we're winging it, and I don't want to spend too much time doing it. Today, I'm taking it a little bit more intentional. I'm having a I'm going to present a couple of ideas that I believe really matters for today, April 26th, 2026, Sunday. And I just feel like, it's time. I took a little hiatus from doing some of these videos, which was, I think, warranted in that, I need to come prepared. I don't want to just always wing it. It was cool to begin this journey, but I have some real things to say. I'm kind of going in different spaces right now, and opportunities are popping up, and changing of commitments, and all this stuff. And I feel good about my ability to help people through the current shift in the economy, the labor market, whatever the fuck it is, the music industry. I feel like I have valuable insights and can execute at a level that I believe will allow me to flourish in this new era. And what this new era is to me, it's understanding how to build a business in this world of super intelligence, right? We have never been able to have these types of tools in history, and it almost feels like AGI, super intelligence, and somewhat of a you, you know, some people call it a god or a whatever it is. It's nothing but software sitting on hardware. It doesn't exist yet in the real world until I have a robot coming to me and shaking my hand, and we vibe out and we're friends. This is just software sitting on hardware, and actually it is so intense that like this software needs a bunch of really crazy hardware to run. Um, and We are in this moment where they're subsidizing the costs. We have full ability as entrepreneurs, as founders, as artists to take full advantage, as creators, take full advantage of it and actually drive things that we've never been able to before. And then at the same time build IP that can last even in an era of super intelligence, AGI, all this stuff, because of certain pillars that I believe are core to building and marketing and all the fun things that I like to talk about every day, right? So I'll go ahead and start kind of with this my thesis, right? And or at the end of the day, the conversation is how do we build, right? If everything is going to be disruptive, if all knowledge work, if all artistry, everything is going to be disruptive, what are we building, how are we building it, and why are we building it, right? That's the core to all of this right now. Let me pull up my screen real quick. The main idea is, I believe now anyone can produce and few can compound, right? Just as a business person in my career, I've been in the music business 17 years. It's only now that I feel comfortable going outside of the music industry and focusing on different types of businesses, because that many people need this. That many people need this integration, this compounding effects that happen when you do a bunch of things right in business, right? So if anyone can produce and only few can compound, to me, that is an opportunity, right? Um, and this kind of thing happened. We've seen the music industry change over the last 20, 25, 30 years. I've always been like, I grew up buying CDs as a kid, buying cassettes, all that stuff. So I myself was trained to buy music and value music, the tactile, actual, music formats I was into and I loved. And then all of a sudden that went away when I started downloading songs. And, it kind of came back when I started buying, like iTunes songs and, all that was great. But then streaming came, and then it kind of dropped the value of music, of recorded music. And what happened? Everything else around the music became more important than the actual music. It became about the community and the live experience, and it became about, just building, you know, around an artist, around, a music entity that allowed you to capture, directly from consumers. And, that's where this indie, this independent game comes from. And I'm born and bred of that. I've gone in the music industry direction, and I've worked with labels and all this stuff. And, even I found myself getting sucked into the game. But, at the end of the day, when streaming and the value of a recorded song went to zero, everything else became the business, I believe, and everything else helped drive the value up of the song, up of the IP in a way that, just showed me, the ropes and how this can be done in any business, right? So, really, at the end of the day, the lesson of streaming is the lesson of AI. When output is free, the only things that compound are the relationship between the operator and the people who show up for them, and the systems that turn the relationship into leverage. That's what we build. That's what I focus on building, right? So, like I said, there's all these platforms. We should be utilizing all these platforms as if they will not be here tomorrow, right? We use the intelligence today and we build ours for tomorrow at the end of the day, because we don't know if Claude and ChatGPT are going to, spike up the cost of their tokens a million times. We need to be able to understand what these companies do, how they use our data, how they sell it back to us, and how they take as much as they can from us in exchange for a little convenience, right? So, I think the biggest lesson here, before I get into it, the biggest lesson here was the idea, when we were running Team Backpack, we were putting tons and tons of content out, and YouTube was paying well. Don't get me wrong, YouTube was paying well, but we gave Facebook all the content, and they gave us a ton of free reach. It was amazing. The free reach on Facebook before digital ads, really, flooded everything. It was amazing. But at the end of the day, all they were doing was building profiles on our audience. And then lo and behold, a few years later, they started selling back, the audience to anyone who was down to pay for it. Right. So I don't trust these platforms. You shouldn't trust these platforms, whether it's Spotify, Meta, Facebook, any of the Meta platforms, any of the, new AI tools, Claude, ChatGPT, none of those, don't trust them, but use the fuck out of them. Use them for what they were built for, and just understand that they are subsidizing it, and they might take it away, and they might change it at any moment. That's why you need to now build and think of your own system of record, whatever that looks like, right? For me, and for most of my collaborators, partners, I would say local devices. I would say use local models. I would say, own as much of the data, have as much of the data that you're collecting on your customers and everything within your own system. Make sure you're building your software stack on that system, and make sure that your edge is within your own system, right? Because if your whole edge is like, oh, you can go viral on Instagram all the time, that can go away tomorrow. Oh, Claude is running our whole business. Oh, that, they can change it. It'll be, it'll take some time sometimes, but don't rely on anyone. Build your own system of record and be tool agnostic, right? If you need to change this model with this model, from day one to day two, fuck it, do it, right? Build your system of record, make that your edge, make sure your company is built around that, right? And there's a lot of ways that we can do this in practice. I have my ideas. I'm not going to bore you to death with all of it right now. If you want to talk to me about it, just reach out to me. This is just the framework I'm using, and I'm telling all my clients to do this, right? There will be plenty of tools. We will provide the tools. My friends are making some great tools, and we're going to utilize those in the stack. But make sure whatever you do, you're building your own system of record and utilizing the hell out of these hyperscalers that are subsidizing the costs. Right? Never been a better time. So that's the super intelligence that we have. But why does it matter, right? We have 8 pillars and a flywheel. And these are things that AI just simply cannot buy for you. Each one of them is an input to the next, and you can build any pillar and it pulls into the next one into being, essentially, right? And you keep turning the wheel, it accelerates on its own, right? I saw this in practice working with different artists, different companies here and there, and I saw it not working when this didn't work out and we didn't have all these pillars set up and it completely failed, right? So that really comes down to this now. It's this system, and just review the part on the right. It might be a little hard to see. I'll try to make it, sorry. I'll start at the top and then I'll go around the flywheel. But basically, your taste is everything, right? We have this opportunity, every day to, curate what we want and what we like in the world. And yeah, maybe some people have better taste than others, but taste is always subjective. What I always say, if you have an idea and you're putting it out into the world, that taste, there might be 1,000 other people that have the exact same taste. You would hope that there's millions more people, right? That's how you have a massively scaling business. But even 1,000 people with your same taste can be a great way to start and a great way to push out, and start focusing on your business, right? You have the taste, and in the music industry, in the music world, I think this is the most applicable. Your taste builds the catalog, the IP, the music at the end of the day, has value. It will always have value, but your taste, really that input is really what makes that valuable, right? It starts the process of this flywheel, right? But, as we know, what happens every single time? If you don't distribute it, if you're not able to get it out there, what does that even matter, right? The catalog, the IP just sits there, right? If you're able to, put it out there, you now have to get as much distribution. And we can talk about distribution in the sense of, a music distributor, but they're not actually distributing your music. They're just putting it on stores. They're distributing it in the fact that it's on stores, but they're not promoting it for you. Very rarely does anyone promote it for you unless you're in a good situation. You have to own your distribution. You have to drive your own distribution. Now, if you're not talking about it, if you're not actually driving the conversation of the product you just build, and you're waiting on something, no, the most important thing that you need to do is this: talk about it on these free distribution platforms. Start there, just start there, and then we can do everything else. Then we can start making ads. Then we can start creating all sorts of funnels around it. But until you do this, then you aren't maximizing your opportunity for distribution, right? And it's part of the reason why I'm doing this right now, because I can't tell other people to do it if I'm not fucking doing it myself, right? Use these platforms. It's the same as the rest of the hyperscalers. Use Facebook Meta or Facebook, Instagram, all these platforms to be able to drive your own system. Because, pause 1 second. Own your own distribution, own your own narrative. Like I said, if you can't talk about it, you can't drive it yourself, you yourself don't own it, you will need other people to do it. You'll need to pay people. You need to pay a lot of money. Do this first and then start doing all of that. What happens when you put your taste in your catalog and you drive the distribution? Your community starts showing up. It shows you who it is that really matters that you're trying to sell to, right? This is core. This was core to my, my company, my movement, the platform I helped create called Team Backpack Community. And honestly, at the end of the day, I didn't cherish it as much as I should have. We focused on everything else, but community was what made the platform, made the company dope. The community of rappers and artists and producers and people doing everything, plus the community of people that showed up every year for the events, right? So the community, needs to be more than a function now. It needs to be breathing. It needs to be a big part of your ethos, putting community first, right? Employees, your partners, your your customers, whatever it is. Put them first. Can try to drive people into your community. That is a must. What happens when community gets built though? Live. You show up live. The in-person experience matters more now than any other time in history. In the music business, it's going to change quite a lot, I believe, but live is going to still reign supreme. With shit's falling apart in the economy, people are still going to want to dance. I believe they're still going to want to go to shows. They're going to want to go and feel things, experience things. In the real world, when I do business with people and I'm not in person, I don't feel like I deserve the close. Yes, sometimes it can happen, but the trust needs to already be there. But that trust in person means that you have a real person sitting there, not some AI that's telling you to buy something, right? In person, live, then builds the relationships, right? Building a relationship with all of your customers, building a relationship with all of your fans, with all your employees, all your partners, whatever it is, this matters. We obviously this might obviously be, very normal, but some people forget. Some people forget that you have to build relationships with your audience, not just treat them like an audience. You got to build a relationship. And then what happens when you build a relationship? You get the trust. You start getting people to trust you and giving you more data. And that data, that proprietary data, is what sharpens your taste, and that flywheel goes spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, right? The reason why I put this out there, it might seem just super obvious to you. It is. But in this era, sometimes when we get caught up in the hype, we forget that these things are what matters, right? One of the things also is that, like, the great thing about it, I know some of you might be thinking about how to do this, how to apply this. You can start anywhere. You have something, you probably have one of these things already. You should mind map it, understand where this is. I'm doing this exercise daily. I'm bringing this exercise to all my clients and partners and everything. But, you can start anywhere, and each and every one serves the next, right? So you can start anywhere and start closing the loop, and actually, driving the car, right? Essentially close the loop. Proprietary data feeds back into taste, and that's where the first compounding event starts, right? We see this in music. I think the best artists do this really well. We'll have another episode. I'll have another episode where I talk about, some case studies. But the most important thing, and I've realized this, I've understood, I've started, kind of thinking about it more and being intentional. But you have to guard the wheel as much as possible. If something doesn't align with this, but it pays, be mindful. Is this going to drive the business forward? If not, this is a different business. And, whatever it is, to me, I've realized, the opportunity cost is everything. If it is a distraction and it's pulling me away, or it's pulling away from one of these 8 pillars, it's not going to be a good scenario. So guard the wheel as much as possible. I think I've rambled enough for today. If you want to find parts of that, just go to my brand website. It's really just a catch-all for my business. It's tejent.co, tejent.co. There's some other stuff on here. This is the main stuff that matters. Hopefully this helps. I know it's a lot of information. It's dense, but it's somewhat obvious in certain ways. I think take from it what you will. I am workshopping it. You can argue with me, hit me up if you disagree with anything, but I just wanted to put it out there, and I want to make sure that every conversation I have with potential partners, clients, artists, whatever it is, you guys understand this. This is where my head is at, and we can start off with that baseline going forward. Shout out to y'all. We'll be back soon, hopefully within the month. Shoot me a comment and smash that like button if you know what's good for you.